Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Soul Speak. I am your host, Emily Miller, intuitive guide and healer. So, this week we are going to stay on the creator field, but we are going to go into thoughts and the role that thoughts play within our creator field. So, there are a few different things to think about when we're talking about thoughts. And the first one that I want to really solidify into your knowledge is that thoughts create things. Thoughts are wildly important. They hold so much power. Think about how do things become things? Like, how do inventions become? How do programs become? How do all of these different things that we have within our world in our daily life, how did they become things? They had to first be a thought. They had to be like a little light bulb idea that people had in their heads. Without that thought, without that idea, things would never exist. They would just be nothingness. It would just be a clean blank slate. So people have to have thoughts in order to create things. So thinking about that, think about Steve Jobs. He had a thought to create the iPhone. Imagine if he never had that thought. Well, somebody else might have then had that thought, but it would be a different thing. It would be a different product. It would be a different device. So think about Steve Jobs, and he had to think, okay, I have this idea, I have this thought to create a device that is going to connect people across the planet and be like a little computer that you can just hold in your hand. That is wildly powerful in our world today. He had to have that thought before he could create that thing. So thoughts create things. Even the person who made your water bottle, the person who made the chair you're sitting in, the person who created the car that you're riding in, all of these things all had to first be a thought. So thoughts are really, really important. And with that, thoughts carry energy. They carry signals that are being sent out into our creator field. And our thoughts are what really power up our emotions. And these thoughts that we have will create the matter in our life. So whenever I first got into the spiritual world and all of this stuff, one of the first people I ever listened to was Abraham Hicks. And she had but she has books. She worked with her husband, and she did recordings and stuff that you could listen to of her books. And in most of her teachings, she was always like, oh yes, thoughts are powerful. Well, yes, we know that. Thoughts are super powerful, but why and how? And her teachings typically were always oh, just have positive thoughts, just have positive thoughts. And that's what a lot of people in the spiritual world will say, just have positive thoughts. That's all you have to do. Well, easier said than done, because positive thoughts are not the dominant thought that we as human beings automatically connect to. A lot of times, it's easier for us to stay in the thought, loop of the thoughts that we have, this running program that we have in our head of thoughts that are familiar to us. We like to have thoughts that feel safe, and a lot of times the feelings that we have, the thoughts that we have, feel safe because they are familiar. We as humans, the way our brains are wired is that we like to have things that are familiar to us. Familiar does not mean that they're good for us. Familiar just means that we know them. So these thought loops, these programs that we have running in our brain, whether they are conscious thoughts, things that we're aware of, or they're subconscious thoughts, things that just kind of run on a automatic in the back of our brains, our brain just wants things that are familiar. So these could be thought programs that are icky, they're old, they're things that don't serve us, but we keep them and we hold on to them, and our brain kind of holds on to them for dear life because they're familiar. And familiar means safe, and our bodies are hardwired to want to be safe. And so these familiar thought patterns create a feeling of safety within ourselves. And so our brains are always looking for familiar so that we can be safe. Think about, like, back in prehistoric times, whenever we as human beings were like running from wild animals or those kinds of things, our brains were always scanning for safety because we were literally in like this fight or flight state where our existence, our survival was completely reliant on us and our safety. Well, most of us don't live in environments like that in 2026. Like, it's just not a thing. So our brains haven't caught up to that idea yet, and they still operate in this fight or flight sort of system to where we're constantly scanning our environments looking for safety, familiarity, things that we know. And our thoughts are the same way. They always, they want to stay familiar. They want to stay safe. And so we have a lot of thoughts that are going on in our head that we've had for some of us decades. And we just keep these thoughts in our head because we don't know any better. We most of the time aren't even aware of what's going on in our own thoughts. I had an intuitive read one time. I think it was probably my first intuitive read that I ever really had from like another person who had the same training that I had. And they were talking to me about how what was in my creator field and what I needed to do to shift it. And I just had this like big like awakening, like eyes wide open, of realizing how I had been thinking about myself, the things that I was telling myself, the programs that were just running on loop in my head that I literally had no idea were there. I just was living my life, running along, like having these experiences that weren't ideal for me, but I was just like, okay, this is just what life is. And then I realized, like, oh my God, I am talking to myself this way. I'm saying these things. This is what I'm believing about me. And it was wild because And I actually just started crying because I was just like, oh my God, I cannot believe I am that mean to me. Like, where in the world did this come from? Why do I treat myself this way? I literally would not treat my worst enemy this way. I wouldn't say these things to people. I hate it that I was like wishing the worst on. Like, I wouldn't speak to them that way, but yet here I am every single day, all day, running these thought patterns in my head, telling myself that, I'm not worthy of these things. I don't deserve these things. Whatever they were, like, it was just like these things that were just running on loop, going wild in my brain and creating this reality in front of me that I had no idea the connection between the two. And so whenever you kind of start understanding the creator field and that our thoughts are the things that are driving our reality, then you're like, okay, I got to start paying attention to these things. And it's not just switching them to positive thoughts. It's being like, okay, are these even the truth? Is this actual reality? Why do I think these things? Where are they coming from? Who told me these things, and why did I take them on as my own? And when you can kind of like start, diving in and seeing like, where did all of this literal nonsense come from, it's eye-opening. You can get to the root of why you have the people and experiences and things in your life that you want to change. So, and that's kind of part of it, is that we have these just programs running on loop in our head, these thoughts and ideas that we have about ourselves that, where do they come from? Lots of places, but none of them are true. So it's like realizing that and being like, okay, all the things that I thought and knew to be true about myself, they're just there because they feel safe and they feel familiar. So my brain just kept holding on to them. But they're not true and they don't make me feel good. So let's replace them. Let's figure out what are these exact beliefs that I'm holding on to, these exact thoughts that I keep in my system, in my creator field, and then let's shift them. Let's change them. Let's fix them. Let's make them into things that serve me, that make me feel good, that give me all the things that I want. So that's the one really big thing. And then another really big thing about having to be able to get out of these thought patterns that we have is the other realization that 96 to 98% of your thoughts are not your own. And it's just the same way as we pick up on other people's emotions. Whoever's like most solidly rooted into their emotion in our environment, we're going to pick up on that person's emotion and we're going to take it on as our own, because we are constantly, as human beings, integrating our creator fields with other people's. We are, getting in this person's energy field, getting in this person's thought field. We are, our little fingers, our emotion, or our energetic fingers are kind of like playing around in other people's energy fields. And that's not really a great thing. Think about, like, I'll go to the gym, okay? And I have a process that I do where I can put up, that I've learned, trained, put into my beingness, into my like aura, creator field, all of this, where I put up shields. And I can put up emotion shields, and I can put up thought shields, and I can put up contagion shields. And these energetic shields will protect me from other people's energy getting into my own. And I put up these shields so that whenever I go to the gym, you think about, okay, well, how many people are at the gym? Let's just say it's a busy day and there's, 100 people in the gym, 75 people, whatever. There's a lot of people in the gym, okay? And I go in there and I bring my energy in. And if I hadn't put up my shields and pulled in my aura and done all these, little energetic practices that I have in place, then I'm going into the gym like naked, basically. I'm going in there exposed, totally like just, okay guys, give me all your energy. And that's not a good thing, because think about like, okay, what about if Sally came into the gym and, she just had a huge fight with her boyfriend and she is an emotional wreck about it, and, she'd been crying all morning. Do I want Sally's energy? No. And let's say Jim comes to the gym and he is, he just got fired from his job and he is in a wild state of despair. And he is feeling, loss and lack and all of these feelings. Do I want to pick up on his thought fields and emotion fields of everything that he's feeling? No. I want to stay as far away from that as I can. So we've got all these people, and everybody has their own story. Everybody has their own thing that they are dealing with, right? And I've got my own stuff that I'm dealing with. Do I want to pile on top of everything that I already have going on in my life, Sally and Jim's and Tom's and Mackenzie's and Kaylee's stuff? No, I don't want any of their stuff in my stuff. I want my energy to be my own. I want to keep it safe. I want to keep it clean. I want to keep it pure of everybody else's stuff. And unless you have those sort of practices, which I like to teach to a lot of people around me. My children do it. I just had my son. We had a full refresher on how to have his shields up while he's at baseball, so he's not tapping into all of the anxious energies of all the people around him. So, we put up these protections, but if you don't know how to do that, it can get really overwhelming to have all of these other people's junk in your precious energy. And so it's something to just be super aware of, is that we're picking up on thoughts from people who they can be across the world, literally. Like, that's how strong thought fields are. And if you know what you're doing, you can tap into people's thought fields, like, that are in another country. But a lot of times we are picking up on our families, our friends. Think about if you walk into like a concert and how many people are in there and the emotions that are going on within there. People are connecting to the lyrics in the songs, and a lot of times song lyrics, whether we like it or not, are sometimes, what's the word I want to use? Maybe just not the most uplifting lyrics. You can think about like Taylor Swift songs. It's all about, the boyfriend who cheated, who told her that she was dumb, or told her that she wasn't smart enough or pretty enough or whatever enough. And, there's all these like things in these songs, if you were at a concert, that they're telling you how to feel about certain situations because they're getting you into that energy of that song. And so you're picking up on a concert full, thousands and thousands of people who were there, like a Taylor Swift concert. I think they have like 80,000 people that were ending up going to these concerts. So imagine if you're picking up on every person in that concert, there's 80,000 people in there, and they're all singing about heartbreak. What in the world are you going to be picking up from them? Heartbreak, over and over, lack, loss. Those aren't emotions that I want to pick up and carry around with me on a daily basis. I want to keep my own thoughts. I want to keep my own energy with me, because that's whose energy is meant for me, mine. So we've got that whole idea that we want to think positive thoughts all the time. And yeah, we do. We want to have these really good vibes about ourselves. But the world makes it really difficult to hold on to those. And so a lot of times whenever you are first getting into like spiritual things and you're learning about the power of thoughts and that thoughts create things and that we need to carry positive thoughts, we get kind of down on ourselves and we're like, oh my God, why am I thinking these negative thoughts again? Why am I feeling this way about this? And I want for you to just like stop whenever you start getting that like beating up on yourself about I should be thinking a different way, because when you're new in the spiritual world, that's one of the first concepts that they teach you is in like, the manifestation world, is that your thoughts are really important. You want to always have positive thoughts, but it's hard. It's hard whenever you don't have protections to put up, if you don't even understand that your energy is being combined with all the people around you and people that maybe aren't even right around you. It could be people that are just like, thousands of miles away, and you're even picking up on their energy and their thoughts. So realizing that it's not something that you need to beat yourself up over or be hard on yourself about, and just kind of like understand it, realize it, think about, okay, I know that I've had these programs, these thought programs running in my head for a really long time. And it's human nature to just hold on to them, to just keep them because they're familiar, and because my brain wants things that are familiar and safe, it's going to keep those. So that's the first thing to realize. It's not your fault. It's human nature. It's how your brains are wired. And it takes some very concerted effort to shift it. It doesn't happen overnight. You can't just flip a switch and say, I'm not going to have negative thoughts anymore, because your nervous system will kind of like freak out. It's like, oh my God, we're having all these new thoughts. What am I going to do? How do I live with this new way of being? Because new things, we've had a podcast about this, or they always seem kind of hard or scary because we don't know about them yet. So that is just how we physically are made up to respond to new things, including a new thought process. So thinking about that and just giving yourself that awareness and saying, okay, this is supposed to be a little bit challenging. This is supposed to be something that feels uncomfortable because it's new, and that's okay. So these new thoughts are going to feel a little uncomfortable, and it's also going to be a little bit harder than how a lot of the spiritual world portrays positive thinking, because it's not just switch your thoughts and you're good to go. It's not just that simple. There's a lot of things that are at play here, and other people's thoughts are very intrusive into your own. They play a monstrous role in your being, in your existence. And so knowing that, and knowing that 98% of these thoughts aren't your own thoughts, they're somebody else's thoughts. They're Taylor Swift's thoughts, or they're, Sally's at the gym's thoughts. Who knows? Like, they could be anybody's thoughts. And so it's super important to think about that. Those two big factors about your thoughts is that it's going to take a little bit of time to switch them. It's going to take a little bit of effort, and it's going to feel uncomfortable, and it's going to feel a little unsafe to create these new thought patterns, but that's all okay. That's how it's meant to be. That's supposed to happen whenever you have new ways of being. It's going to feel uncomfortable. It's going to feel a little bit scary, and it should. That is what it's supposed to feel like. And if it didn't, then you're probably doing something wrong. So one really great tool that I want to give you guys today that is so nice whenever you are in these moments of feeling like your energy is heavy, or feeling like you're being kind of bombarded with these thoughts that are not positive thoughts that don't feel good, is stopping for a moment and really observing the thought. Okay, so saying like, okay, what is this thought that I'm thinking? Getting the thought, and then saying, these thoughts are my own? Question mark, are these mine? And if the thoughts stop, they are not your thoughts. So you have this moment and you're like, okay, I'm aware that I don't feel great right now. I'm aware that my thoughts are kind of running wild. I'm aware that I'm on maybe a little thought spiral, is what I kind of call them, because our thoughts will have, one kind of negative thought or even a positive thought. And then the thought grows, and then it grows, and then it grows, and then it grows. And now your brain is just on this spin. It's taken off into kind of like a little mind of its own within the mind. And it's just seems a little bit out of control. So taking that moment, taking a breath, observing the thoughts, and then asking, these thoughts are my own. And if they quiet and they stop, realizing that, okay, those weren't mine. And giving yourself that grace, giving yourself that moment to be like, okay, cool. I can now fill this thought space with things that are mine. Where do I want to take these thoughts? What do I want to put my focus on? Instead of having this thought spiral of things that are not feeling good, that aren't serving me, where could I take it now? What could I then start thinking about that feels good? If you can hold a positive thought, or I don't know, positive thoughts, it just seems so generic. But if you think of something that, feels good, something that is serving you, something that is an expansive thought, and replacing it. So let's say you were on this thought spiral, and let's say you had these spinning thoughts about how you weren't able to do something. And it was, here's a good one. These are thought spirals I always have. And it'll be like, I should have said something different. Okay, so I do this all the time after a conversation with somebody, and actually I've gotten this is a skill that I have been practicing. So I'll have a conversation with somebody, and then after the conversation, let's say I'm on the phone and I hang up or I leave the, space that I was in, and then my thought will be like, should I have said that? Did I offend them? Did I sound dumb? Did I da 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 da? And then I'll just, have that thought spiral going on about my words that I said to this person, and if they were, good or not. And how did I make that person feel after the thought? So let's say you're on this thought spiral about what you just said to somebody after the conversation, and you leave, and this is your thought spiral. And so then you sit there, you do your practice, and you say, okay, wait a minute, what's going on here? This doesn't feel good. It's feeling like a little out of control. And you go, okay, I'm going to take my breath. I'm going to notice what's happening. And then I'm going to say these thoughts are my own. Silence. They're gone. And so then what you want to do is maybe flip it. And then you can say, okay, so those obviously were not my thoughts. We're going to change this. We're going to make this productive here. And then you can start thinking, okay, how did that conversation go perfectly? How did that conversation go exactly how I wanted it to go? And you can say, okay, well, Sally at the gym who just got in a breakup with her boyfriend, and I was talking to her, and I told her about a breakup that I experienced, and you know what that did? That made her feel really good because she didn't feel alone. She felt that I hadn't gone through that same experience, and then she didn't feel so alone in her feelings, and I made her feel heard, and I made her feel understood, and I made Sally's day because I sat there and I chatted with Sally, and it wasn't that I shared too much information, and it wasn't that I overstepped my bounds and told her things that I shouldn't have told her. The truth was that I made her feel really good by having this conversation with her. I allowed her to, share how she was feeling, and then I told her how I had an experience like that, and so she feels less alone, she feels heard, and she feels better. So that spiral was nothing. That was just something that my brain was used to doing after conversations, and it doesn't have to do that anymore. Now we're going to go through and see every single conversation that we have as perfect. It went exactly as it should. It couldn't have gone better. So there's a little trick that you can start doing this week whenever you are just out and about and you realize, okay, I'm having this thought spiral. I'm having these things going on in my head that just don't feel great. So I am going to quiet them and then replace them and see how that goes. It is very empowering, and it's really fun because then you get to be the person who's in control of your thoughts. They are not running wild. So do that this week. Put that in practice. And let me know how it goes. Put some comments in the comments section. Share your experience with it and see what kind of light bulb moments that you have when you try it out. And be sure to subscribe in my show notes. There's a link to the website to subscribe to the newsletter for invites to exclusive events, webinars, energy work trainings, and also there's my free intuitive reads there. So if you would like to sign up for one of those, please do so. And I will see you next week. So have a gorgeous, gorgeous week.